All right, I think we are live. I think we are live. Gonna check to be sure. Yep, it's happening. Give folks a couple seconds to come in. We're gonna get started in a couple minutes. Live at 5. I am my own everything, of course. So just updating all the social media accounts. I cannot see who's here, so if you're here, say something in the comments so I can know that you're with us. Oh, I was muted. Like I said, I'm my own everything, and so I gotta, make sure that all the socials are updated and people know where to find us. So I see Auntie Sylvia here. Hey, Nia's here. Mommy's here. Jazz is here. Court is here. All right, cool. So y'all do me a favor, share on. Looks like all y'all are on Facebook, so share that link out so that other people can join us. And we are going to go ahead and get started. So just as I did last week, I want to definitely begin with the disclaimer that I am not a medical professional. I am just a person who has lupus and who has been doing research since my diagnosis, and also, of course, has personal experience with a lot of this stuff. And so, again, my name is Javon Bracey, and I'm the founder and curator of the Purpletuity Project, which is a lupus awareness and advocacy organization. I was born and raised in New Orleans. I currently reside in Denver, Colorado. I'm a minister at a church here. I also do some contract-based and project-based work with some faith-based work organizations, as well as community organizations. And the Purpletuity Project is a passion project that I launched last spring. I believe it's important to have a Black woman's perspective and voice as a part of the chorus of people who are supporting and advocating for people with lupus. Of course, May is Lupus Awareness Month, a time to continue to raise the public consciousness about lupus, which is a disease that's often misunderstood. So I'm going to do my part by doing this series live at 5. I'll go live at 5 p.m. Mountain Time, the forgotten time zone. People don't know what Mountain Time is. Just want to engage with the community about lupus-related topics and things of that nature. So today's topic is signs and symptoms. So If you're on YouTube, please subscribe to the YouTube channel. Again, share the video on your profile or with anybody that you think might be interested in this content. And if you have any questions as we go along, definitely drop them in the chat and I will get to those as I can. So shameless plug, of course, if you have not already, feel free to go back and watch episode 1. I'll do a brief recap of what we talked about, but it's, I don't want you to watch the whole thing, So lupus is a chronic and complex autoimmune disease. Chronic meaning persistent, long-term, requiring ongoing medical attention. Autoimmune meaning antibodies that are supposed to be produced by our immune system when the body detects harm, like infection or injury. Those antibodies are actually attacking healthy cells and healthy tissue. So this leads to widespread inflammation and pain in various body parts. Because lupus can affect pretty much any part of the body, it can cause a lot of different symptoms and a lot of various combinations of symptoms, which means that each person with lupus can be affected differently, just completely differently. So I'll spend a little bit of time at the end once I go through the signs and symptoms talking about my own journey specifically. But just know that you could meet another person with lupus and they could have an entirely different story. You can't see most of the signs and symptoms of lupus, so it's often called an invisible illness. Nevertheless, these symptoms can have a profound impact on the way that we carry out daily activities. So some common symptoms include joint pain and swelling, especially in the hands and feet, skin rashes, especially across the nose, cheeks, and sometimes the neck, overwhelming fatigue and exhaustion, low-grade fevers, sensitivity to light, especially the sun, ulcers in the mouth and nose, anemia, white or blue fingers when you're cold, neurological problems, which could include anything from severe headaches to cognitive dysfunction or brain fog, general confusion, memory loss, attention span issues, things of that nature. Pulmonary problems, with your lungs, inflammation in your lungs. One of those things is called pleurisy, which is the inflammation of the lining of your lungs. Of course, that causes difficulty with breathing and things of that nature. And also kidney problems, which is also specifically called nephritis. So again, many of these things, hey dad, many of these things are not visible, right? So they're not visible, but they do have an impact on the way that we carry out daily activities. And again, lupus is a chronic illness, so that means the symptoms are ongoing. But there are specific times when one might experience an increase in symptom severity, and that's what's called a lupus flare. So we'll talk a bit more about triggers next week. But most often, triggers for a flare include things like environmental issues and stress. So these heightened symptoms or flares can last for days or even weeks. And since there's no cure for lupus at this time, the best bet for treating symptoms, we'll also get into that next week. We'll talk about tests, treatments, and triggers next week. So the best bet is just treating the symptoms and, of course, getting rest, which is, great for a lot of stuff. New symptoms for lupus patients can appear, and some will drop off and disappear. Lupus patients can also experience symptoms that overlap with one or more other connective tissue diseases. So those white and blue fingers or Raynaud's syndrome, joint pain and inflammation, rheumatoid arthritis, which I also am being treated for. So there are some overlap. And again, that is sometimes what is difficult about diagnosis, is that lupus imitates other diseases as well. So again, if you have any comments or questions, feel free to drop them in the chat. I'll be checking that as we go along. The earliest signs of lupus usually are apparent in early adulthood, so anywhere from the teen years into the 30s. As I mentioned, I was diagnosed in 2016 and I was 24. I had to count, that's funny. So as I said, I want to share a little bit of my personal history, personal story regarding signs and symptoms specifically. So the first sign that I can concretely recall experiencing was joint inflammation, specifically in my ankles. And I started experiencing that in a really noticeable way in 2013. Now, remember, I just said I didn't get diagnosed until 2016. So for me, it was about 3 years. But on average, it takes lupus patients 6 years between when they first start experiencing signs and diagnosis. So anyway, I was spending the summer in DC for a fellowship. So I was doing a lot more walking. I didn't have my car. I was taking the public transportation and things of that nature. So at first I kind of chalked it up to that, just doing a lot more walking, but then it started feeling worse. And even when I would rest or take an Uber, it would still feel bad. So I went to the ER and I was on crutches for a bit. Then I did some follow-up with an orthopedic surgeon who told me that it was tendonitis and that I should just treat it with rest and ibuprofen and maybe wearing a brace and, just not walking and things like that as much. So I did that off and on the rest of the summer while I was in DC. Got back to school that next year, and it was my senior year at Xavier, which was a very busy year for many reasons. And I was still experiencing the same pain in my ankles off and on. So same deal, rest, ibuprofen, and a brace. And, just continue to do that. Also around this time, I started experiencing hair loss, not balding, and not like falling out in clumps, more like this odd, like thinning. Which was also, I had to take, senior pictures and all of that stuff, just like really bad timing, guys. Additionally, over the next year, I started experiencing extreme fatigue. So just tired, just like no amount of rest, no amount of sleep could rejuvenate me. And also ulcers, mostly in my mouth and throat. And I will spare the details about that, but very painful, very painful. So again, this was right before my senior year, during my senior year, right after my senior year. So I was mostly just kind of chalking it up to stress, right? I had just graduated. I had just decided not to pursue law school. My first year out of undergrad, I was doing AmeriCorps, having to be at work at 6 o'clock in the morning. Around that time, I also had a death of a loved one and a bad breakup. So stress, of course, right? But every few weeks, it felt like I was in the ER or at the urgent care or just experiencing inexplicable exhaustion or pain or just something else. And this went on for months, really, really years. My white blood cell count was also really low, which my primary care doctor at the time chalked it up to genetics, but I'm talking like super low. So the normal range is somewhere between 4,000 and 11,000 white blood cells per microliter. And mine was at times barely over 1,000. I also began to experience gastrointestinal issues. So specifically stomach pain and even like bleeding. I had a colonoscopy and an endoscopy to discover why. And my GI doctor, and no one could really explain why, but it was likely that it was because I was taking so much ibuprofen. And I know that, that wasn't the best recourse, but I was in so much pain every day. So literally every day, multiple times a day, just to be able to function. And by this point, I had moved on from AmeriCorps and I was, working other jobs. And so this had been a couple years now that I had been experiencing these issues. And so every day I'm taking ibuprofen just to be able to function. And, so that wasn't necessarily a lupus effect, a lupus sign, but it was something that was happening because of the way I was treating my pain. So when I saw the rheumatologist for the first time, we sat down, we chopped it up. In addition to the tests, we talked about all of this. We went through, he was like, just tell me your entire medical history, as much of it as you can remember. And of course, at the time, it was a little bit closer. So I was giving as many details as possible. So as I'm talking, he's just like clicking away on his little computer. And he's like, yep, this combination of things is pointing us in this direction. So I started on a medication regimen, which was great. The first thing that it helped was the stomach issues because I wasn't taking ibuprofen. And then, it started helping with the other symptoms. Now, the key is the symptoms didn't go away, but they began to be managed better, right? And so my day-to-day life, my quality of life day by day was just more manageable. And of course, flare-ups definitely happen. They still happen. I was down and out for like a week last month at some point. Again, those triggers, weather here in Colorado, it is cold and rainy today, and it was just like warm enough for sandals this past weekend. But anyway, flare-ups definitely still happen. And, you know, usually I just inform my family and friends and my colleagues and try to rest as much as possible. And then also, you know, take my meds and make sure I'm eating right and things of that nature. So the signs and the symptoms of lupus don't necessarily go away, and they haven't gone away for me, but they're just more easily, my day-to-day is just better, and they are more easily managed by what I have going on. So as I shared before, new symptoms can pop up. So even after diagnosis, I started experiencing new things. So in addition to the arthritis, the arthritic symptoms in my ankles, I also started experiencing them in my hands. So for example, sometimes it's just hard to open things, or I just get really weak. So I experienced the arthritis in my hands as well. When I went back to school in 2017, it gave me like an increased awareness of some of the cognitive symptoms. So the headache, but also like brain fog, forgetfulness, and difficulty paying attention or concentrating. And this is not a treatment, but what has helped with the brain fog specifically for me is just writing everything down. Like I write on my laptop. I write in a way that I can erase, of course, but I write on my laptop. I write to-do lists, grocery lists, even manuscript for sermons and presentations, or having at least notes kind of jotted down to help, you know, with my memory, and also to help with confidence to ensure that I'm feeling good about, you know, whatever I'm doing. Hey, Uncle Jeb, good to see you. So the last thing I want to talk about is pleurisy, which is something that I also began experiencing a few years after diagnosis, which is, as I shared, the inflammation of the lining of the lungs. It can be very painful, hard to sleep, hard to breathe, and it usually takes a week or so to resolve, of course, with rest and medication and things of that nature. So the first time I experienced pleurisy, I didn't know what was going on. I called my parents and I was like, y'all, like my chest is killing me. I can't breathe. I had already kind of been experiencing diminished like lung capacity, which I thought was kind of connected to just being in Colorado with the different, you know, air quality and at a higher altitude. But then I went to the emergency room because it had gotten so bad, and they didn't even know what was happening, even after I shared with them that I have lupus. And so, you know, that leads me, as I'm coming to a close, sound like a preacher, huh? So that's one of the reasons why I feel like this organization and these type of conversations are so crucial. Because it's, you know, the cliche is that knowledge is power, but that's so true, right? It's important to empower people and empower families and empower communities to know what's going on, to normalize it so people can have the capacity to advocate for themselves, have the capacity to make good choices, have the capacity to ask good questions, and to just center and prioritize their health, which is so, so, so important. So that is pretty much all I have for today. I'm not seeing any questions in the chat, but if anybody has any questions, feel free to drop them in there. I know we kind of went through a lot, but the video will stay up. And so if anybody wants to share it or go back and watch, you are more than welcome to do that for as long as it is up. As we close, just a reminder, every Monday throughout the month of May, which is Lupus Awareness Month, I'll be doing this. Next week, we're going to talk about tests, treatments, and triggers. The week after that, we'll focus on the social and economic impact of lupus, race and gender, and like I said, economics. And then we'll finish up the month, the last Monday of the month, talking about mental health and emotional support. So definitely stay connected to the Purpletuity Project. Visit our website, browse the blog. Most of this is on there in blog form as well. And there are also some links to external sites like, the national lupus organizations that, really put forth a lot of good information. If you have any questions about things that I didn't get to today, you can put them in the comments. You can send me a DM. You can text me, you can call me, you can shoot me an email. The Purpletuity Project email is thepurpletutityproject@gmail.com. So you can, send any questions or any comments you have there as well. I am wearing a Purpletuity Project t-shirt, and you can get one too. A donation of $20 or more gets you a t-shirt just like this one. You can go to purpletuity.org/donate to do that. We are on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We have a YouTube page, of course. And last but not least, I did 2 yoga sessions at the beginning of the year in January. I'm doing another one on the last Saturday of the month. That's May 29th. So mark your calendars. Definitely let me know if you want additional events. We can try to work those out. Love supporting people. It's actually a gentleman who is a Xavier grad who's going to be facilitating the yoga session this time, and I'll release more info about that this week. But yeah, let me know if you have any other ideas other than yoga and other than sessions like these about things that we can do. So, I'm gonna check the comments one more time. Yes, definitely learning more and more each week. Thank you, Sissy, for being here. And yes, you got your shirt. And thanks everybody who is on. Thank you for hanging out. Thank you for making it this far and spending a little bit of time with me. Yes, I'm glad it was informative. That's the goal, right? Is just to make sure that people have accurate information and people are empowered to, just know what's going on with themselves as well as what may be going on with other people within their families and friend groups and things like that. So for sure. So again, thank you so much for joining me today for Live at 5. I'll be back next week, same time, same place. And in the meantime, in between time, if you have anything that you need or any questions you need answered or any suggestions, let me know. So love y'all. Have a happy Monday. Be well, be safe. Is it raining in New Orleans? It's raining here. So stay dry wherever you are. Yes, donate. All of the funds go to ensuring that we can put on programming. And, I'm working toward becoming a nonprofit, and all those processes cost money and, take a lot of time. So definitely donate, get your shirts. Gonna ask people to post pictures in them. If you get the shirt, post a picture so we can just, see who all the supporters are and things like that all across the country from sea to shining sea. Well, okay, so I think that's it, unless we have any more questions or anything like that. Let me check again. Nope, I think we're good. So again, love y'all. Thank y'all for hanging out, and I will see y'all next week. Bye.